The level of dysfunction in this building has hit an all-time high in my 11 years. Yesterday we saw a desperate Republican caucus who apparently refusing to raise taxes on the wealthiest industry in the history of the world, the oil and gas industry, would instead rather raise taxes on families who deed over the title of their car to their child, or a wife who deeds it over to their husband, or they wanted to eliminate the back-to-school sales tax holiday for working families, and they wanted to make state agencies pay sales taxes so that way we could use the money they paid in sales taxes to give back to themselves. We've reached a level of just ridiculousness in this building. And we've said all along, our caucus has, that the way you get out of this budget hole is by restoring the cuts that put us here in the first place, and those start principally with the gross production tax. And I got to my caucus and I got to the Capitol this morning, and we heard that a deal had been struck. Not a deal that had been struck with us because we weren't at the table, but we heard a deal had been struck. As a matter of fact, lobbyists in the foyer of the House were talking about it. And finally, I approached members of House Republican leadership and I asked them, are the rumors true? Has a deal been struck? And we were told, yes, a deal's been struck. I said, what's that deal look like? And he said, well, we're going to move months on gross production taxes. Instead of 36 months, they want to go to 18 months on gross production taxes at 2%, then everything else above 7%. And I asked them, does that apply to all discounted wells, those wells that are currently at a 2% rate? And they said, no, it only applies to new wells drilled after July 1. And so our caucus said, we will never support that, because the fiscal impact statement that we received from the Oklahoma Tax Commission said that under their proposal, they want us to raise hundreds of millions of dollars on the backs of middle-class families, and next year their proposal would bring in $0 from the oil and gas industry. Their compromise, their supposed compromise on oil and gas gross production taxes would bring in $0 for next year's budget, which does nothing to help us increase teacher pay, does nothing to help us increase state employee pay, does nothing to help us reduce class sizes and fund hospitals and public safety facilities around the state. And so our caucus is coming together, making it abundantly clear to the folks in charge that we will not support their gimmick of a so-called gross production tax increase that doesn't raise one new dollar from the oil and gas industry next year. We are reiterating our call. Our caucus believes that it ought to go to 7% on all discounted wells starting July 1, but we are willing to compromise at a 5% rate. And we believe that there are dozens of members of the Republican caucus in both the House and the Senate that support that. Just this morning, Tom Ward, who helped found Chesapeake Energy with Aubrey McClendon, helped found Sandridge Energy, he met with House freshmen, both Democrats and Republicans, and discussed the idea of going to a 7% rate and how it was inconsequential in the overall decision-making process to drilling a well. And after that meeting was concluded, there were a large number of the House Republican freshmen who believed the gross production tax should at least go back up to 5%, if not 7%, joining all members of my freshman class who believe it should go to a minimum of 5%. And so our caucus is sending the message to the governor's office, to the pro tem's office, and the speaker's office. You need our votes. You need our votes to raise revenue. We're not going to raise revenue solely on the backs of middle-class families. Gross production tax has to be a part of it. We're asking you now to invite us to the table. Invite us to the table so that we can strike a compromise that offers a true solution that shares the burden. Their offer of a gross production tax at 18 months isn't even a solution. It doesn't certainly share the burden because the industry pays $0 new next year, but it's not even a solution to this budget problem because it brings in no money to help fund education, healthcare, and public safety. And our caucus stands here unified against it. And if they think that they can shame us into voting for a cigarette tax after just coming out with an 18-month gross production tax starting July 1, they'll be sorely mistaken. We are in this mess not because the oil and gas industry writ large opposes it, because the vast majority of the oil and gas industry in the state of Oklahoma supports our position. They not only support us going to 5%, they support it going to 7%. People like billionaires like George Kaiser, millionaires like Tom Ward and Dewey Bartlett, all of those folks, Republicans and Democrats alike, across the board, support going to at least 5% gross production tax increase. We are here in large part because of two people. We're here because Harold Hamm and from our understanding, potentially Larry Nichols, but predominantly Harold Hamm has decided as the single largest shareholder of an oil and gas company in the state of Oklahoma, the gross production tax increase would disproportionately affect his bottom line. If the governor's office with the speaker and the pro tem come to us today and say, we finally understand what you've been saying all along. You want a 7% gross production tax. We'll go to a 5%. If we could do a handshake agreement on a 5% gross production tax for all currently discounted wells. Make no mistake, it can't start after new wells drilled after July 1. That won't bring in hardly any money. It's if they'll go to a 5% gross production tax on all discounted wells, bringing in hundreds of millions of dollars. If they would shake our hands on that today, we'd be done and have a budget by next Friday without the need of a special session. And so it should be noted that because of their intransigence, their refusal to move on gross production tax at any significant way, because this 18 months bringing in $0 is not significant movement. It's because of their intransigence and refusal to do the right thing on gross production tax that the state is looking at spending potentially $30,000 a day in a special session when we could have gotten our work done on time. People come to the state of Oklahoma for a variety of reasons, and the oil and gas industry would tell you that they are drilling in the state of Oklahoma today, not because of a 2% gross production tax rate, but because of the plethora of oil that is beneath our soil. The SCOOP and the STACK are the second and third largest oil plays in the entire country. Those leases are here, and they will be drilled by somebody. If not Harold Hamm, if he doesn't like a 5% gross production tax rate, I promise you somebody else will come in and buy that lease out from underneath him, and they will drill the well here. And so we are in no danger whatsoever. And those are from the words of George Kaiser and Tom Ward, oil and gas men, not just Scott Inman, the minority leader. We are under no danger of any of these leases or wells being shut down because we go from 2 to 5%.